Okay, Pallavi, you can start. So
To
those,
those, yes, to those who can act only on a rigid standard, to those who can feel only the human and not the divine values, this truth may seem to be a dangerous concession which is likely to destroy the very foundation of morality, confuse all conduct, and establish only chaos. Certainly, if the choice must be between an eternal and unchanging ethics and no ethics at all, it would have that result for man in his ignorance. But even on the human level, if we have light enough and flexibility enough to recognize that a standard of conduct may be temporary and yet necessary for its time, and to observe it faithfully until it can be replaced by a better, then we suffer no such loss, but lose only the fanaticism of an imperfect and intolerant virtue. In its place, we gain openness and a power of continual moral progression, charity, the capacity to enter into an understanding sympathy with all this world of struggling and stumbling creatures, and by that charity, a better right and a greater strength to help it upon its way. In the end, where the human closes and the divine commences, where the mental disappears into the supramental consciousness, and the finite precipitates itself into the infinite, all evil disappears into a transcendent divine good, which becomes universal on every plane of consciousness that it touches.
okay, a very interesting para. And what the whole chapter here is that there are standards of conduct, and nothing is absolutely valid for all time and in all countries and all places. Desh, Kal, excellent condition, nothing. They, everything is relative until you go to the last. But this sounds so reasonable and so obvious to many, but it is not so obvious to many. Yesterday, I was watching a video of an argument between a Muslim group and an Indian Hindu group. Okay, and the Muslim was saying something very interesting. He said that in your religion, you have the possibility of changing your standards. Okay, your dharma can go on changing. But in our Quran, we are told that nothing can change because this is the absolute truth. Now, just see that. That's exactly the opposite of what Sridhar is saying in this chapter. So, that which we feel is so obvious is not so obvious to many. Okay, so that is the interesting part. Okay, so now with this background, we'll start reading and seeing each sentence. Okay, and it's true, na? In India, everybody is allowed to approach the highest degree of whatever he is capable of. Call it divine, call it good, call it whatever you want to call it. It goes on varying, okay? And you are allowed to vary. That's why we have got so many religions. Okay? No one religion is denied in India. Okay? They are all lived side by side together, but not so in the other religions. They don't allow.
But Rama,
Tell me.
historically, that is the downfall of India, no? Because we let them come in.
That is one of the reasons you are right, because too much of freedom can be misused. No? And also, there was another thing. What you are saying is okay, Pallavi, but there are two other reasons. One was the Muslim conquest of the West. Okay? And India was always in this exactly what you're saying, a very laissez-faire attitude. Okay? It doesn't matter what the others do. So this was one of the downfalls. In fact, Sri Aurobindo says something very interesting. Sri Aurobindo says, India became too civilized. He has used these words in a correspondence with Anil Bharat. India became too civilized, and that's why they fell victim to the Mughal conquest first, and then the British conquest afterwards. And then there's another big reason also for the downfall. The biggest reason for the downfall is the rise of Buddhism and Mayavada, and the insistence that the physical world is unreal. If you want the real, go out of the world. So no attention was paid to the physical world, and therefore there was illiteracy, uh, no hygiene, dirt, and poverty. This was one of the many factors are there, but this is one of the main things. But what is surprising in India is that in other civilizations, when these ups and downs occur, some of them disappear. For instance, the Egyptian civilization has disappeared completely. Not a trace of it left, except the pyramids, which they are cashing in on now. Then there was the Aztec civilization, the Mayan civilization, the Syrian Mesopotamia. Okay, that was also there. So all these things, even our Harappa and Mohenjo-daro also, they have disappeared completely. But the civilization stayed on. It was kept burning in small pockets. Okay, and that is the reason why today, even today in India, there is so much of laissez-faire. Okay, and this whole idea of what you call religious secularism. Okay, you are taking secularism to the extreme limit. Okay? But now, fortunately, you can see from the last 2 years or 3 years, there is a revival of the Hindu Dharma. And let's hope that it continues. So, you are right.
Rangada,
Yeah, tell me.
Rangada, here I want to put in a small word
Go ahead.
that isn't it because we were flexible, there was that Sanatan Dharma which accepted everything, which
Yes.
accepted, but it kept its essence, that it is still a living Dharma today in the world. This is the only living Dharma which has continued for years. Maybe if we had been that rigid and we would have told we cannot change and all that, it would have gone like all the other dharmas. That is the uniqueness of Sanatana Dharma, I feel. I mean, I may be wrong, but I feel that uniqueness is because we allowed everything, but we didn't lose our essence.
Yes. But it
The
was
essence
kept,
of our dharma.
but there was a big downfall now in Indian civilization, and we became poor and we lost the
But
capacity to
after
think.
each, as Sri Arvind says, each cycle goes down and then again comes with a leap higher.
That's
So
right.
I feel it that way, that whatever, though we lost, we got many things. We lost something. I mean, we can still say that we are in an upward, I mean, the progress is always there. That is why our Sanatan Dharma, what I'm not talking of Hindu Dharma as the outside thing, the essence which he talks of, that
You are
essence
right.
is still living and still practiced. Not
Yes.
only living, it is practiced in day-to-day life in some form of other by everybody.
Yeah.
As
That's right.
Sherwin tells, the context may be different, but all of us are living that Sanatan Dharma. It's not only in books, or it is not only somewhere, like which has gone, or it is just history. It is something which is still living. I think because of the flexibility, because of the freedom, the flexibility, it is still alive, or it would have been dead by now. I feel that way. I mean, I may be wrong. And that is what I feel even in Sherwin's writing, that is gone on in spite of all that. In his old books in which we read, he has said that these cycles are necessary, and like even in human cycle, he's talking of the cycles.
Yeah.
So I think this is a what to say, providence of the divine in which we are moving, and he has kept us alive.
Archana, what you are saying is absolutely correct. But at the same time, you must remember that the Sanatana Dharma, okay, all forms become fossilized. And in India, we have many, the common man is following traditions which are fossilized. Okay, I'll just give you one or two examples. Okay, then you will understand. The real spirit has always been maintained in India in small pockets here and there. But what we call Sanatana Dharma is often misinterpreted as the traditional forms which don't change. I'll just give you one instance.
No, Rangada, I'm not talking of that at all. I completely agree with what you are saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the essence has been kept alive all these years. That is exactly what I'm telling. What you are saying, maybe my words have conveyed it wrong. I'm not talking of the fossilized kind. The essence has remained alive through all these years because probably we had the freedom. to go inside. If
Yeah.
you fall, also to rise. So
That's
there were people, there were pockets who rose, who could really live it, who could experience it and share it with us. So today we can read Sri Aurobindo and read of what 2000 years back. I
yes.
mean, I'm talking of that. I'm not talking of the fossilized farm. I absolutely agree with that, what you're saying.
What you're saying is absolutely correct. But I'm just pointing out that
Ah.
it was kept in small pockets. And that was the main thing. It never died. And remember one thing, India is the only country in the world where the civilization is so old, 5,000, some people say even 10,000 years old, has not died. It is almost dying. Sri Aurobindo says something very interesting. He says that Hinduism, to me, he says in one letter, he says it's like, to me, it is like a huge temple, but which has got submerged, and only the top of it, only the crest of the temple is seen. The rest of it is all submerged. Okay, because there was no capacity to think, and there was a big downward fall, mainly. That is it. But the dharma, Sanatana dharma, was definitely maintained. That's true, absolutely true. So I pointed out this changeability, which is there, is a very important thing. But that Muslim was saying that in our Quran, we are told that this is the absolute truth and we can't change it. It's the same in Christianity also. You can go to the divine only through Christ. If you are not Christian, you can't realize the divine, number one. Number two, they have got all these very rigid ideas that the world was created in so many days. It only goes back to 6,000 years or even less. Okay, so rigidities are not there in the Indian true spirit of Sanatana Dharma. But the rigidities came in the public domain. Rigidities definitely came. Where you can see so many rigidities in Hinduism. Huh? So that's not what Archana is saying, and what she's saying is absolutely right. But the downfall also caused the rigidities. For instance, thinking that a young widow is a blot on your society and she is a bringer of ill luck. So send her away to Varanasi, or the Shraddha ceremony. Nobody understands what the Shraddha ceremony is, and yet they continue to do that. Okay. Many people wear also the sacred thread around their on the shoulders and the torso, but they don't understand the significance of it. So all these things show also that there is a rigidity setting, but slowly now we are getting back to the right. And let us hope that even the public changes their views. Okay, so it's an interesting question. Okay. So,
Rankata?
yeah.
Rankata?
Yeah.
What is, I have just a vague feeling about the Sanatana Dharma. Can you
Okay.
say a little more, the kind of definition or the general thing about Sanatana Dharma?
Okay. So Sanatana means eternal. And if your concept is about the eternal without rigidities, then it can be Sanatana. It can be eternal. But if you have rigidities and you say that it can be only this way, it can be only that way, then naturally it is not Sanatana because it's going to change. Evolution itself is the best proof that nothing is rigidly fixed and rigidly permanent. Evolution is there, and that's the proof. There are many ideas which are not satisfying in many religions, and that is the reason why people lose faith also. But in Sanatana means eternal. And if you are depending on the eternal, which is in our Satchidananda, but there's no rigidity there. It is formless, it is infinite, it has no fixed forms. So this suggests the flexibility. You are allowing everyone to approach it in their own way. Okay, that is the Sanatana Dharma. And the Sanatana Dharma, as it is, the word dharma is also very interesting. Dharma means it's coming from the root dhri. Okay, It does not mean, as people often normally understand, that dharma is duty, dharma is religion. It is not. Dharma is the rules that are applicable, psychological and spiritual rules are applicable at every stage. That is dharma. And the dharma is not something fixed. At every level, the dharma goes on changing. Okay? But the highest dharma is Sanatana Dharma. You say that the goal is the Sanatana Dharma, the Satchidananda, but that is not something fixed. It's absolutely flexible. It is infinite, without form. You can approach it in any way you want. That is why it is Sanatana. The moment there is rigidity and fixity, okay, it cannot be Sanatana. Okay, I don't know if it, Sumki, whether it helped, but this is the idea of the Sanatana, that which will be valid forever.
Yes, yes, that helps. Yeah, more clarity. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to our text. To those who can act only on a rigid standard, that's what went into the discussion. Rigid standard. To those who can feel only the human and not the divine values, this truth may seem to be a dangerous conception which is likely to destroy the very foundation of morality, confuse all conduct, and establish only chaos. So, what is Srila referring to? He is referring to the fact that no moral standard is absolutely valid forever. Okay? This is what he's saying. Now, if you say that, people can completely misunderstand you and misquote you. And they'll say, oh, it is like that. I can't steal. So that means I'm allowed to steal because there's nothing fixed. Yeah. I cannot murder anybody. You know, that also I'm allowed to. So you misapply the concept. That's what Swami is saying here. It may dangerous concession which is likely to destroy the very foundation of morality. On the one hand, you say these are values, moral values, and on the other hand, Swami is saying that they are moral values are valid at one level, but they're not valid at all the levels. But what are those other levels? The higher and not the lower. The lower you go, they remain valid, but the higher you go, they may change. Some of them may be retained, but some will definitely change. So this can be a dangerous conception and can destroy the very foundation of morality because of misinterpretation. It can confuse all conduct and establish only chaos. That is the reason why, even in the Gita, it says very clearly, don't give a superior standard of knowledge to one who is not at that level. Okay? It is not only useless, but it's also very dangerous because even misapplied. Okay? That famous story of the elephant Brahman and the Mahut Brahman illustrates this point, if you remember. Okay? But there's, it can be, the story is Ramakrishna's story. I think everybody knows it, but I'll just quickly, briefly tell you what the story is. The Guru told a Shishya, Guru told his disciple that everything is Brahman. Okay? In whatever degree and form, everything is Brahman. So he was going in the road one day and he said, this is wonderful. Let me apply that. But remember, he is not in a consciousness where everything is Brahman. It's only a mental idea. So he is going to misapply this idea. He is going in the road and there is an elephant which is in must. Must means it is in an excited condition. Elephants do get into an excited condition sometimes when they are in season. Okay, the season for reproduction. So then they become pretty dangerous. And the Mahut who is sitting on the elephant tells him, move out of the way, don't stand in the way because the elephant can hurt you. But he doesn't listen. He says, I've been told that everything is Brahman. Okay, elephant is Brahman. So why should it hurt me? Brahman can't hurt me. But the elephant picks him up, throws him on the wayside, and he gets badly hurt. He goes back to his guru. And the guru tells him, okay, You followed my instruction, but you forgot that the Mahut also is the Brahman. So that's the story. So misunderstanding the higher principles, if you give it to a person who is not yet mature enough to understand that, he will misapply. That's exactly what Swendra is saying here. Dangerous conception, concession. Okay? Certainly, if the choice must be between an eternal and unchanging ethics and no ethics at all, it would have that result for man in the ignorance. So if you say that my ethics are absolute, but if you compare with something where there is no ethics at all, then naturally it will have that result. That's exactly what I meant by morality is perfectly valid downwards. Okay? Morality is perfectly valid downwards in a certain sense, but above it may change. Okay? This is if there is no ethics at all, then it can certainly be dangerous. This also must not be misunderstood, because for man, morality is absolutely essential if he is not in a spiritual condition. But if you go down to the animal level, morality is not applicable at all. So you must not misapply what is being said. Lower standard means at the human level only, if they are at a lower level than the moral. The thief, the murderer, okay, the pervert, these are all the lower levels. For them, morality is very, very necessary. Okay. So I go to the next one. I just read this again. Certainly, if the choice must be between an eternal and unchanging ethics and no ethics at all, okay, no morality at all, anyone can do anything they want, it would have that result for man in ignorance. There would be a lot of confusion in society. But even on the human level, if we have light enough and flexibility enough to recognize that a standard of conduct may be temporary and yet necessary for its time, and to observe it faithfully until it can be replaced by a better, then we suffer no such loss, but lose only the fanaticism of an imperfect and intolerant virtue. Okay? Intolerant virtue are those who sometimes your virtues are very intolerant. Okay, you feel that you are a non-smoker and a non-drinker, and everybody else who is drinking and smoking are of a lesser value. You are being intolerant to them because these are only very, very superficial things. So that's what they think. And you become a fanatic. Oh, he is a bad man. He's doing this, he's doing that. So if you go to another level of consciousness, you will see that what you feel is a virtue and what you feel is a sin. It's not necessarily like that at all. Right. So we suffer no such loss, but lose only the fanaticism of an imperfect and intolerant virtue. In its place, we gain openness and a power of continual moral progression. See, all the ideas that we discuss are all here together. So there is an intolerant, in its place we gain openness. We discuss the lack of the flexibility also. We're talking about the word flexibility, and it's also saying that there's a progression, there's an evolution. In its place we gain openness. Okay. Openness and a power of continual moral progression. Charity, the capacity to enter into an understanding sympathy with all this world of struggling and stumbling creatures, and by that charity, a better right and a greater strength to help it upon its way. So if you become very, very understanding and think that the man who is ill or who is pervert, he can also be changed. Okay? He can also be used to have an understanding. And this is coming now in many, many countries. They are saying nowadays, not punishment, but reform in jails. Okay? In jails also nowadays, even in Delhi also, the Tihar jail, they are actually teaching the criminals, okay, professions, bread making, carpentry, all these type of things. They are teaching them so that they can stand on their own feet. Okay. So this understanding has to come, and in fact, in Europe, that understanding also has come because they have banned capital punishment. So there is more of an understanding. Okay. This idea of capital punishment is right or wrong is a only in two. It's very strange, but in the largest democracies of the world, okay, the two largest, America and India, the capital punishment is still valid. Okay, but in India it is used very, very rarely. Very rarely. We have understood that it needs reformation and change, but we have to be very, very careful. What happens to a serial murderer? You can't let him loose in the society. You have to put him behind bars and try and change him. Okay. Anyway, this is what Sendri is talking about. I now read the next one. Greatest, we will have a, he's saying, you will have a better right and a greater strength to help it on its way, if you are understanding. In the end, where the human closes and the divine commences, which level is this? This is obviously the level 2, the spiritual planes of consciousness. As soon as you go above the mind, the human is beginning to close and the divine is beginning to open. The higher mind, then the 11th mind, then the intuitive mind, and then the overmind, and finally the supermind, where everything is absolutely divine. Where the mental disappears into the supramental consciousness and the finite precipitates itself into the infinite. The finite, all your fixed ideas, it precipitates. Precipitate means becomes solid, okay, and goes up. Okay. The word precipitate here is used in the sense of if you put, say, a glass of pure water, okay, you put a drop of color, okay, it all goes down and settles at the lower end of the. So precipitate means exactly goes down there, densely collects at the bottom. So this is not densely collecting at the bottom, but densely collecting at the higher level. The finite precipitates itself into the infinite. All evil disappears into a transcendent divine good, which becomes universal on every plane of consciousness that it touches. Now, this sentence also you must not misunderstand. All evil disappears into a transcendent divine good, which becomes universal on every plane of consciousness that it touches. Does it mean that everything will change? He is talking of the one who has gone to that consciousness. The one individual with his human consciousness, when he goes to the divine consciousness, for him, the divine is there everywhere, even in those things which you feel is evil. He can only see good everywhere. And little distortion of the good, but the good is there everywhere. I go back to the 5th chapter of the Gita, where it says that the one who is a realized soul, okay, his view of the Brahmin, the wise man, the dog, and the elephant, and even the Pariya, or even the lower caste, he is Samadarshina. He is a Samadarshina. Samadarshana. He's got absolutely an impartial look on them, and he is not making any judgment. So that's what Swami is saying here. That last sentence you have to understand in that way. The one who has understood and gone to the highest level, for him the divine is there everywhere. It doesn't mean to say that for us, those who are at a lower level, the divine is, we are seeing the divine everywhere. No. Okay, so that's it. Now we can go to the next para. This then stands fixed for us.
Shall I read?
Yes, you can. This then.
This then stands fixed for us that all standards by which we may seek to govern our conduct are temporary, imperfect, and evolutionary attempts to represent to ourselves our stumbling mental progress in the universal self-realization towards which nature moves. But the divine manifestation cannot be bound by our little rules and fragile sanctities, for the consciousness behind it is too vast for these things. Once we have grasped this fact, disconcerting enough to the absolutism of our reason, we shall better be able to put in their right place in regard to each other the successive standards that govern the different stages in the growth of the individual and the collective march of mankind. At those general of them, we may cast a passing glance, for we have to see how they stand in relation to that other standardless spiritual and supramental mode of working for which yoga seeks and to which it moves by surrender of the individual to the divine will, and more effectively through his ascent by this surrender to the greater consciousness in which a certain identity with the dynamic eternal becomes possible.
Not a very big para, quite a small para, but it's interesting what he's saying. So let's have a quick look. We have got just enough time, I think, to finish this para. This then stands fixed. Look at the word then. Huh? This is very interesting. So you always use the word then as a we may conclude. That's the implication. This then stands fixed for us that all standards by which we may seek to govern our conduct are only our temporary, imperfect, and evolutive attempts to represent to ourselves our stumbling mental progress in the universal self-realization towards which nature moves. So nature is moving more and more towards perfection, but in a very, very slow manner. But the divine manifestation cannot be bound by our little rules and fragile sanctities. Now look at the word. For you, I don't smoke, I don't drink. Huh? But it's a very fragile sanctity. It's nothing so fantastically sanctimonious. There's the word sanctimonious, pretending to be very, very sacrosanct. Okay? Fragile, it's very fragile, your ideas. I don't drink, and you think yourself to be a great man, you don't drink. Okay, nothing. This is exactly what Sherdil said. Fragile sanctity. Look at the words. Sherdil's use of words is so interesting. Okay. So, it can easily be broken because someone who is, in fact, many of our yogis in India, when they are in cold climates, they take bhang and they take drugs also to keep themselves warm. Okay. So there's nothing. So it may be immoral, but it's not spiritually wrong. The wrongness comes from the attachment, not the action itself. That's an important point to keep in mind. For the consciousness behind it is too vast for these things. So all our little ideas that you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, all no. Okay. But something also very interesting nowadays, okay, your dressing. Dressing also should be proper. But just look, okay. Raman Maharshi, no dress at all. Okay. In fact, even the Jains, okay, the Digambar Jains, not even a loincloth, okay. So, and sometimes there is a very high level of consciousness. So, this is the interesting, but fragile sanctity. So they're using the word. But the divine man, yeah, fragile sanctity. But the consciousness behind it is too vast for this. Once we have grasped this fact, disconcerting enough to the absolutism of our reason. Our reason goes on saying it is absolutely wrong to drink. I am giving you only one example. Okay? It's absolutely wrong to do this, wrong to do that. Even those things can be used by the spiritual aspirant. Remember that. All these are all standards of very, very narrow standards. The tantric uses methods which most people will condemn as absolutely perverse. Okay? Once we have grasped this fact, disconcerting enough to the absolutism of our reason, we shall better be able to put in the right place in regard to each other the successive standards that govern the different stages in the growth of the individual and the collective march of mankind. So there is constantly harping on this. What is valid for the individual, but also it has to become valid for the collective mankind, the collective march of mankind. At the most general of them, we may cast a passing glance. So now we will start looking at the various standards. The first standard, as I said, is the egoistic behavior. Second, social behavior. Society steps in and says the ego has to be kept under control. Third standard, the moral standard. And the fourth and last standard, the spiritual standard. Here the four standards are conduct. For we have to see how they stand in relation to that other standardless spiritual and supramental mode of working. Okay. Remember the Gita's Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. That's the highest. Don't be bound by any standard and any rule at all. Just depend on me. Standardless spiritual and supramental mode of working for which yoga seeks and to which it moves by the surrender of the individual to the divine will. And more effectively, through his ascent by this surrender to the greater consciousness in which a certain identity with the dynamic eternal becomes possible. So see, there are two standards. There is an identity with the eternal, but when Srimad uses the word dynamic eternal, he means the supermind, because the level 2 is not dynamic. You don't change your body, mind, life, you don't change. But when Srimad is saying dynamic eternal, he means the supermind, where the power to change even the lower, your body, mind, life also comes in. So that word dynamic, absolutely essential. Okay? Dynamic means you have the power. In the level 2, very often there is no power. Even if power is there, it is inadequate. Okay? So that's what he's saying. And we have come to the end of the para and we'll stop here today. So next time, these four standards, what they are, he will tell you. Okay. Very small,
Merci beaucoup.
very small para. One more.
Thank you.
Have a
Au revoir,
nice day.
Rangada. Thank you, Rangada.
Thank you, Rangada.
Okay, au revoir, everybody.
Thank you, Rangada.